Thank you, Beth, and thank you, Bioregionals Americas, for this opportunity for Fritz Hansen to join this program or this presentation. We, as Beth said, has for a long time been working with the organizations in America and with our American PR agency to promote the story of Fritz Hansen in America. This presentation that I will give you today is much about some of our historic things, but also about the way that we work in Fritz Hansen, how our design DNA, so to speak, is built into the nature of what we do, and a little bit about how the design department in Fritz Hansen works, which could be probably an inspiration and hopefully interesting for some of you. To begin with, I would like to just talk you through a little bit about the sort of today's agenda. In Fritz Hansen, we have this thing whenever we go to a meeting, we check in, meaning that that's the opportunity for you to say at a meeting that the kids have been screaming all morning, or my bike had a puncture on the way, so I'm a little agitated. So, and my check-in today is that here in Allerød, where I sit in Denmark, it's 30 degrees in summer. And it's very warm here, and the air conditioning isn't working. So that's my check-in. So please bear with me if the sweat is building on my forehead. Just a few things about myself in 2 minutes. I'll try to give you the story of Fritz Hansen of 147 years of history in 5 minutes. That's going to be interesting to see how that works. I will take you through our design philosophy. I'll take you through the designers that we're working with and has been working with, something about our design process, and we need to talk about Fritz Hansen 2020. So also here I would like to share some things with you. Something about our design strategy, something about the future, and then, as both Elisa and Beth said, we are open for Q&A. The first thing that I would like to show you is a picture here, and that picture is me. Where I'm sitting, and now the presentation doesn't seem to want to move on. There it is. I am sitting right here. If you count 9 windows from the left, that's where I'm sitting at our headquarters in Allerød, north of Copenhagen. We are situated about 30 kilometers outside, and the place up here where our HQ is where our production facility and headquarters has been since 1915. So more than 100 years at this place. This building that I'm sitting in right now is not 100 years old. It was done in 1997 as a bridge between the old and the new. And that's where I'm sitting right now. So that's also a check-in from me. As you would probably see in this picture, this is where it all started. And the history of Fritz Hansen starts in the center of Copenhagen at a city park called Christianshavn. And in that part of the city, there was a lot of furniture manufacturing. And in the second backyard of a house in Christianshavn, Fritz Hansen started. The man you see on the right-hand side with the cap and the white shirt and the black jacket is Fritz Hansen himself. And this is when the company had grown past their boundaries in the middle of the city. Interesting thing about this picture is that you see what people wanted to bring to the company photo. 2 horses, a saw, a hammer, kids, everything is there. So quite interesting. Today, Fritz Hansen looks like this. A lot of people, smiling and looking into the camera in our old production facility just below where I'm sitting right now. The short story of Fritz Hansen is 5 chapters. Chapter 1 is what you saw before. The Fritz Hansen as being a sub-supplier of furniture parts for the other industries. That began in 1872 when Fritz Hansen founded the company, and quickly grew out of its room in Christianshavn. And then he, in 1910, 1915, bought the facility up here for enlarging his manufacturing. And he did it very specifically at this point where I'm sitting right now, because there was the 3 factors that formed Fritz Hansen's future. There was the woods. Sorry, I can't turn the camera around for you, but just behind me here is the large wood full of beech and pine and oak trees that he bought into as a sub-supplier, wanting to ensure his own supply chain. He built a sawmill here, and he built a manufacturing company that could go from being a sub-supplier to making finished goods. And that factory spent the next 10, 15 years growing. And then Fritz Hansen sadly died at young age. But there's always a son, and the son was called Christian Hansen. And he had ideas about his father's business. So what he did during that period of solid wood, he picked up the technology of steam bending wood. The steam bending of wood was invented by Mr. Tonet and others at the same time, especially around Hungary, Austria, Germany, where you steam up wood and you are then able to bend it. And Tonet became the prime manufacturer of especially chairs in the southern part of Europe at that time. And what Christian Hansen did was that he visited Mr. Tonet in Austria and said to him, can I license produce Tonet chairs for the Nordic markets? And Mr. Tonet said, fine, there's somebody here with a factory and a sum of money that would invest in a new market for me. So actually for 10 years, all the Tonet chairs that were sold in the northern part of Europe was actually manufactured by Fritz Hansen. What it gave Fritz Hansen was an investment in technology and an investment in a new factory that was the halls that I cannot show you either, but to the right of me, was up until 1997 our prime manufacturing or our primary manufacturing place. During that period, especially after the Second World War, the technology changed from being only solid wood to also being plywood, which is the third chapter. And I'll get back to that third chapter with some examples in the presentation later on. The fourth chapter came in the 60s, 70s, and was with the steel furniture and that we started to manufacture. So instead of only making the wooden parts, we also invested in manufacturing here that enabled us to do the steel in our products ourselves. And that gave the designers an opportunity to work with steel as well. At the same time, the Hansen family wanted to sell Fritz Hansen because there were none of the kids that were interested in taking over the company. And at that time, a new owner called the Augustinus Foundation bought Fritz Hansen. And I'll get back to the Augustinus Foundation to you in a little while. The fifth chapter in Fritz Hansen was the new owners coming and wanting to invest in technology with Fritz Hansen. We modernized our solid wood production, our upholstery, our plywood manufacturing, and we took in poly manufacturing as well, meaning that we were now able to do plastic parts as well. And we ventured into the whole world of plastic furniture as well. And then the last part of the chapter is actually two new factories that were built in 1997 with these premises were too small. That ran for 12, 13 years, and then that factory was too small. It was 5 kilometers away from here in a city called Lillerød or Vassingrød. And then the last chapter, like 6 years ago, was to build yet another factory that was big enough for what has been our journey for the last 10, 15 years is insourcing. We spent a lot of time in the 70s, 80s, and 90s of outsourcing many of our components. We are now going back to becoming a full furniture manufacturer as much as we can. So we are insourcing, and that demanded a larger factory and upgraded technology once more. So that's the short story, much driven by technology and products, but those are the 5 main chapters that we see in our way of working. So back to us, here we are. I'm standing down there in the middle, and we have these company days twice a year, where we meet and everybody comes home to our office in Denmark, and everybody talk about strategy and the next year's plans, and then we enjoy the company of each other and all the people that seldom come here. We have a summer party and a Christmas party, and it's always a lot of fun. There's a lot of smiley faces on this picture, and that's also something that we really enjoy here. This is a picture from our current facility in Ravich, which is on the border between Germany and Poland. And that's where we have moved our production facility for our plywood products, which is by far the most kind of voluminous, whatever it's called, with the highest volume that we have. We sell about 100,000 plywood stacking chairs a year. and they are all produced on these 14 production lines that you see, number 12 and 11 and 14 here, which in lines produce many of the famous products that we do. So that is part of the current history. There's a lot of hands on these pictures, and that is because we still handcraft everything we do. Even though we manufacture plywood, we hand select the veneer, we hand sort the different wood types, we hand sand and hand mill all our products. So there's a lot of hand in our production. We hand sew all our upholstered products, or most of our upholstered products. So we are very proud about the craftsmanship in what we do. If you then look at a quick jump to kind of our brand, we have been for a while talking about our positioning in market, and I think most brands in the furniture industry and in the kind of premium industry has been for a while thinking and being concerned about the position of their brands. But our brand promise is not something about that we want to conquer the world or we want to do this and that. It's fairly simple. It's that we think that beautiful spaces touch you emotionally, and that's what is the basic of what we do. We want to offer this modern sort of Nordic lifestyle through some extraordinary products and some high-end furniture and lighting accessories that would fulfill that dream. And we have kind of 4 brand characters that we are concerned about, or that we use a lot of time talking about. Is the human aspect. And that means that we want to create products for life. We believe in longevity, and we believe in aging with beauty and stuff like that. And that's why we have this product for life focus. Next, we have this sophistication issue that we talk about all the time. It's a lot about believing in beauty, that we should enable ourselves to talk about emotions when we talk about our products, and not only talk about functionality or rational when we talk. We want to be intelligent in what we do, and that means that we believe that we set the standard, and that is often a challenge, but it's also a cool driver. And in design leadership, my primary driver is to be bold. If we are not bold, we will not be able to fulfill the brand promise, and we would not be able to lift Fritz Hansen into the 6th chapter that we hopefully all work for. Being something in market that we don't even know yet, but as long as we strive with our products, we will need to be bold. So that's also part of our DNA. Our design philosophy is very, very simple. I created this when I came here 5 years ago, because what we do is about the visual, the rational, and the emotional. And the visual is about being original and being sculptural. You will see a lot of our products having a 3-dimensional shape to them. Probably most seen in the products that you see to the right over there with the swan and the egg chair. So they are part of the kind of DNA in Fritz Hansen. Rational is much about quality. We have a great belief in immaculate quality. We want to be timeless. That's a difficult thing. That's the struggle in the design department and then among the designers, because how do you do that? You never know. But at least if we are relevant in time, we have an opportunity to be timeless. And then on the other hand, we also would like to kind of age with beauty in what we do. And how do we do that? We think that using immaculate materials, being vigorous about the quality of what we do will ensure that the products from us will age gracefully. And then the emotional part is about being true. We spend a lot of time talking about the truth. And how do you find the truth? You find the truth by being curious. You find the truth by iterating again and again, and enabling yourself to discuss things like beauty or longevity or whatever in a design process. So it's about always being true to each other and always being true to our brand promise. So it sounds a little emotional, and it is. When we look at what we do, we've been for a while doing chairs and tables and lounge furniture and sofas and stuff. So the middle box there has been kind of constant up until like 8-9 years ago, when we decided that a beautiful environment, if that is our promise, and the beautiful dining table where you want to sit for 5 hours enjoying your family dinner or your friends, if that is a state of mind where we want to deliver products, light and accessories is something that we couldn't deliver. We saw a lot of brands piggybacking on our brand, so to speak, and using our furniture pieces to highlight their products. And I think we made a corporate decision that light and accessories belongs in the Fritz Hansen universe as well. And that's when we started the journey of also having a light collection and an accessories collection. When we have that collection box of the 6, 7 things that we do majorly, we look into 2 channels, left and right. And the thing on the right is the residential part of our business, which is living rooms and dining rooms and work areas and bedrooms and hallways in people's homes. And on the left-hand side, you see the kind of the contractual part of our business, or the professional part of our business, where we see ourselves relevant in what could be called social space, place where people meet or greet in offices or museums or wherever. We have offerings for function space, meeting rooms and touchdowns and collaborative zones and stuff in modern offices. And we also have a few things for work point. We are not in the business of task chairs and height adjustable tables, but we are in the business of maybe executive tables and chairs, and again here maybe light and accessories. So when we have identified the need for a product in a specific category and in a specific channel, we go and we are curious about what goes on in market, and then we do some design projects, and then they go into the Fritz Hansen collection. So a fairly simple model of how we work. The designers who have helped us create this over the last many years, you will see that they consist of a lot of people that have contributed to this as we have moved along. On the left-hand side, you see what we consider the heritage designers in our collection, and on the right-hand side are the ones that have been within the last 15-20 years been part of the contemporary creation of our collection. It all started way back in the 30s with the first design project by Kåre Klint, who sits in the bottom left corner. Kåre Klint was one of the fathers of functionalism, much inspired by actually living in the Bauhaus move, and he came to Fritz Hansen in the early 30s with a project where he asked for a chair. And that chair we manufactured for 25 years, and hereby opening the eyes of Christian Hansen, the son of Fritz Hansen, on the effect of doing design products instead of just doing products. And that evolved quickly over the years. Hans Wegner came in the top left-hand corner in the 40s. He actually came during Second World War with the product that we have had the longest in our manufacturing, which is the China chair. And I'll get back to that in a while. Then the huge era of Poul Kjaerholm and Arne Jacobsen was kind of the revolution, where Fritz Hansen transformed itself from not just being a company that said that we were doing designer pieces, but actually using the designers as an equity in our design moving forward. And they revolutionized Fritz Hansen. They created some of the products that are still relevant for us these days. Huge percentage, I think 65% of our turnover is still the products from Poul Kjaerholm, Arne Jacobsen, and Piet Hein, the middle guy on the left, who designed the span leg tables and super elliptical tables that we have. In the later part of both Jacobsen and Kjaerholm died young, sadly. So already in the 70s, beginning of the 80s, other designers came in, and Viggo Magistrati on the left, right, or sort of on the right bottom of the heritage designers came to us in the late 70s and early 80s and designed a lot of products for us, where we just reissued one, the Viggo Duo chair here, to celebrate that. Viggo would have been 100 this year. So that we wanted to celebrate. Of course, we wanted to do it in Milan, where everybody was ready for his big thing, but that thing got cancelled due to the COVID situation. So sadly, we didn't get the opportunity to celebrate him. The odd guy up here on the right, on the top, is Paul McCobb, and he's not odd in any way, but he's odd in the sense that he was never at Fritz Hansen. He's never been to Allerød. He has never been part of our design history, but he belongs to this side of the part of our collection, is because we have for the first time curated a heritage product series into our collection. And that is the Paul McCobb collection that we are slowly starting to develop now. Some of you, or maybe many of you, might know Paul McCobb. I'm not going to bore you with the story of what I believe is one of the founders of American design. He is in my book, and I have known him and been interested in him since I was a design student many, many years ago. Been kind of the minimalist and the people's designer of America. And I think that his DNA and the products that he has, especially in some of his collections, fit our DNA perfectly. He is the bridge between the sculpture and the graphic. He is the master of simplicity in materials. He is so many things that if he would have been here, he would probably have, in Europe or visiting Denmark, he would probably have been designing products for Fritz Hansen. So by far in my book, he belongs in the same league as many of the designers that you see here. I'll get back to some of the American designers and the influence in a little while. On the right-hand side, you see the current designers, or many of them which are still here. They are not ordered in any specific way. Cecilia has been working with us for the last 15 years. Pierre Lusoni has as well. Jaime has been on a journey with us for the last 10 years. Kasper Salto in the middle has been working with us for 15 years. He's actually my old buddy from design school. We sat next to each other for 5 years at the design school. Benjamin was here when I came 5 years ago and did a product for us, and it has now evolved into 3 products. Gamfatesi is one of the designers who we have had success with in our light category. And then there's Oki, who is the new protege of me in our design development right now. He has been doing a lot of projects and is active right now with more projects that I'll get back to you at the end of this presentation. And then there's Bjarke, who has also been working with us and continues to work with us on projects in the future. So that's just the story of the designers. Now again, my presentation has frozen here. I'm sorry for the tech issues here, but I'll quickly bring you into to the story of Arne Jacobsen and Fritz Hansen. It's not going to be a long lecture on Arne Jacobsen, but a few words on his influence of us. These are some of the products that he designed for us, and they have become icons in our collection, and they still represent probably the core of how we see design. It all started with him coming in 1950, actually late 1949, with a little chair, which is the second one from the right there, which is the ant chair. At that time, other designers had worked with plywood. Plywood came out of the war and came out of airplanes and industry being built around forming wood in layers with glue into a strong construction. And Simon was probably the first who did this around 1941 with the chair on the left, where he kind of bent it one way and were able to do kind of a backrest in plywood. Eames and worked with the DCM collection during the war as well, and launched this product in 1945, or it was designed and launched in the mid-40s. And then Jacobsen and Eiermann were almost working simultaneously on this. The difference between all these is that Jacobsen wanted a one-piece chair. He wanted one piece of plywood that would create the seat and the back. If you sit in a sign-in chair, it's like sitting on a rock. There's no flexibility. The cushion is nice, but it's a very solid chair. The Eames chair and the Eiermann chair, they kind of flex a little bit, but the Jacobsen chairs, they flex a lot, meaning that you actually sit in a plywood chair, which is soft. And that was the key to his interest in this, that he saw the flexibility of plywood together with the manufacturing of a one-piece chair. And that revolutionized Fritz Hansen. It became the driver for our technology. It became the driver for how Jacobsen worked with us during the years. And it also became a sort of a driver for our innovation and for how we see innovation going forward. He made the chair at a time in history, or a time in a place where he was commissioned to do a project for Novo Nordisk, which is a pharmaceutical company. But the technology that he then recreated together with him, he brought into his probably most famous project, which is the Royal Hotel in Royal SAS Hotel, it was called, in Copenhagen. It was done between 1956 and 1960, and this was the Gesamtkunstwerk of Fritz Hansen, or of Arne Jacobsen, where he designed everything: the doorknobs, the eggs, the swans, the house, the staircase, everything. So, and even today, this is a picture from last year. The hotel has just been refurbished into a kind of a more modern style. But if you look closely, there are still eggs and swans and beautiful staircases and curtains and stuff. So he was kind of here. He made his Sydney Opera House as an architect, and he was inspired. And here I'll get back to the American influence. Here he was inspired. He traveled to the U.S. just after the Second World War, when you were able to go there again, and he was fascinated by Philip Johnson. He was fascinated by Mies van der Rohe. He was fascinated by Niemeyer and Skidmore and all the others who at that time kind of translated modernism and translated Bauhaus into some of the famed buildings of New York. New York was the epicenter of architects in the late 40s, 50s, working with these kind of formats of buildings. And he was hugely inspired by that. And on that basis, he created the SAS Royal Hotel, which is now probably one of the few modern listed buildings in Copenhagen. It still sits in its original form because it's listed grade 4, which is the highest, and therefore it cannot be touched. There's a little change to the facade, but otherwise it should be energy efficient, but otherwise it is almost the same. And that project drove forward all these products. This is an actual hotel room from the old hotel, with the tables and the chairs and the lamps and whatever he designed for those specific tasks. And his interest in plywood and his interest in making the plywood chairs grew into also the interest in molded foam and upholstery. And there, Fritz Hansen drove him forward by sort of commissioning him to do some of the products that he designed for all the buildings that he did later on. So it became sort of a collaboration. And here the idea of manufacturer and designer collaborating on driving projects forward was born. And that is more or less the model that we also use today. Here, 55 years later, it looks like this. There are still elegant Sevener chairs and drops and swans and lily chairs all over the hotel. And we are very proud of this project and very proud of still having a connection to this house. And as I said, it's still our icons. We use them. This is a picture from 2 years ago. We still iterate on those products again and again. And that is part of our design history as well. But how do you then balance a design company with this strong heritage? Good question, and probably hard to answer. Our answer is that we carefully curate from our archives, and I mean carefully. And that means that not all products that Arne Jacobsen did or Poul Kjaerholm did are equally good. There's a trend right now in the market with a lot of companies picking up almost everything from the basement archives, and that we will never do. I think we have more than 3,000 products in our archive, and probably 150 or something in manufacturing, and many of them will not be fitting our kind of design story. And then you create new contemporary products in the idiom or the language of Fritz Hansen. And that is hard, and that's what we do every day, and that's what we challenge our designers with, and I'll get back to how we try to do that. Just a little cute story here. This on the left is the giraffe. It was made by Arne Jacobsen in 1958, also for the Royal Hotel, for the restaurant. So it's a molded shell upholstered with a wooden subframe and a wooden edge to it. And it stood in the original restaurant at the hotel for many years. At the same time, he in his workshop, some argue that he did it himself, I doubt it, but let's say that he did, made the little giraffe. And the little giraffe on the right-hand side is a prototype that I have in the archives that I'm responsible for. And it's the only prototype we have. So it's handmade, and you cannot sit in it. And it had a water damage and everything, as you can see. But it had been sitting there in a cardboard box for many, many years. And when we wanted to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Royal Hotel, and thereby also of the Royal Collection from Fritz Hansen, we reiterated the little giraffe. So the little giraffe is an example of a product where we try to curate carefully how we deal with our heritage so that we don't destroy it. We could have asked, I could have phoned up a designer and said, please do a small dining and meeting room chair for us on 4 legs and on wheels and should be able to upholster in leather and have a seat cushion and stuff. But I actually had the product already. We modernized it, and when we do that with heritage products, we do it together with the Jacobsen or the Kjaerholm family, who are still active in engaging with us when we redesign or reiterate the products. All the Jacobsen chairs and all the Kjaerholm products have grown in a little bit in length of legs and size of armrests and stuff, accommodating for just 60 years of change in people's size, height and weight. And that is a constant thing that we do carefully with our heritage collection. But talking about idiom and talking about the kind of owning a language or a sculptural language, this is the result of what we do. On the left, there's the egg chair from 1958, and on the right, there's the old chair from 2013. To be able to do a new high-back lounge chair in our collection when we have the egg like that is probably a daunting task for many designers. And what we did at the time was try to identify the credentials of the person who could do this. And the credentials for a designer that has shape in his or her hand is probably somebody who works with craft or somebody who works with shape as a core DNA. And our answer to that was to find Jaime Hayon. He is not a furniture designer. He never designed a piece of furniture before the roll chair. He is not an architect. He's a ceramist and an artist and a street artist and a skateboarder or whatever he was when he grew up. But most formally, he is a ceramist. And when you're a ceramist, you probably need to have the shape in your hands. When you work with ceramics, you probably need to hand shape them. And they always have these rotational, most of it has this rotational symmetrical or asymmetrical shape, meaning that there is something about shaping them. And we figured that the core of making sculptural unique products is actually molding them or sort of making them harmonious or sculptured in a way. And this is the result. The result is the roll chair that borrows a lot from the egg, but also borrows from more contemporary pieces, but it served the purpose. We decided in 2013 with an aspiration of selling few hundred or maybe 1,000, and we sold 10,000 a year. So the sort of the interpretation of our idiom or our uniqueness and shape was fulfilled by this product. Still manufactured today. You don't see the same sales numbers, but it's still one of our fastest running contemporary products. So this is also the story of how we do that. Here's another example. This on the left is the China chair from 1944, and the China chair is a crafted solid wood chair that we've been producing ever since. Highly expensive and handmade. It takes a week to make a chair. On the right hand side is a Nendo's translation of a solid wooden chair with a plywood seat from 2 years ago. That's the famous project that I gave him. So again, here similarities. Not many front, wooden parts that would irritate your legs, armrests that have kind of the same DNA, a fairly comfortable seat, and again, a back that kind of sweeps you around. So again, interpretations of the same theme. I'll end up here talking a little bit to you about how we operate in the design department. This is a picture taken from me standing on a chair. By me standing on a chair with Jaime Hayon sitting on the left with all his pens and his, I don't know if any of you follow him on Instagram do, because he draws and he makes all kinds of weird things. So he's still a ceramist or an artist. And on the right is Kerstin, who is the project manager in the furniture part of the business. And they are, trying to make the next appointment for the meeting on a product here. And this is actually core of what we do, the collaboration of sitting together, sketching, doing the stuff when we have the first concept is a big part of our DNA. The design department is situated here in Allerød with workshops and 3D printers and milling machines and whatever we have. And we are great believers in kind of the analog way of working when you pass the sketching phase. So a lot of things goes on here. Our process is fairly simple. I won't spend much time on that. You can take a quick screen dump of this if you want to. We work in a stage gate process where we brief designers, we ask them to come with concept for us, we do detailing documentation, and we freeze the products. And it's a lot about meetings and coffee and doing all the sketches and all the drawings and all the models in those phases. So a fairly standard way of working forward. But it always ends up with a lot of this, a lot of hand sketching, a lot of 3D printing, a lot of model building. This is Michael in the bottom from my team trying to make an impossible sofa that Jaime designed a few years ago that we ended up actually making. It's called the Luna sofa, but a very difficult project to make, and a very elaborate shaped sofa. This is the plenum project that we did with him a few years later, a high-back sofa system. A lot of our competitors quickly had the high-back sofas when the whole modern activity-based workspace thing peaked or started some years ago. And our translation of this was to ask Jaime to do a sculptural piece instead of a square box. And here we iterated a lot. And you can see in the top right-hand corner, I only bring coffee. But we had a lot of fun doing this project because it was actually kind of a cool shape to look at, and we had some really good discussion about modern workspace. So here we again jumped quickly into one-to-one. This is a picture where I will try to stop sharing and see if I can start sharing again. So now you will kind of see me in more full mode here. I met Oki, or Nendo as he's called. He is called Oki Sato. 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, I met him in Milan. No, it must be 5 years ago in April, or this April. And I met him through our head of sales in Asia, Dario, who knew Nendo, had met him at some events and sort of poked me on the shoulder and said, "This guy is interesting." And I said, "Yes, he is, Dario. I have him on my list as well, so let's do something about it." And Dario promised me that he would introduce me to him, and he did at the fair in Milan. And there I kind of, Oki is a very cool guy. He probably most of you know his brand. He has been working vigorously in all kinds of categories for many years as a really talented designer. And I tried to abduct him from this boring press thing and try to get him drunk with white wine and stuff to try to talk to him. So we laughed a lot and we joked a lot. And at the end I said to him, "I know, Oki, that somewhere in the stomach of you sits a wooden chair. I know that the way that you craft your industrial design, if you translate that into the link there is between Danish design and Japanese handcraft, which is kind of the same, there's the same reason for that kind of design DNA happening. I know there's a chair in the stomach of you." And he said, no. You know, Christian, no, Fritz Hansen, it's dangerous, all the icons, all the stuff. And I left kind of a little bit discouraged, but said maybe I can convince him on the next bottle of white wine. But then 3 months later, this little box came. This is a typically architect thing, a little white foam box with duct tape on the sides. And I thought, weird. It had said Fritz Hansen on it, and it said 1 to 10. And I opened the little box like this, and it was immaculately put into 5 little containers. And then in this little container, he did 5 concepts for a wooden chair. And if you look at this chair, and you look at the slide that I showed a little bit before about the China chair and the Nendo chair, we are almost 1-to-1 in this little model that he did the first time to what we actually sent in market. Huge challenges. Making a chair with no connecting sticks in the front and stuff, a lot of things going on in that, but I think a very cool story of how a collaboration springs from the right circumstances in a collaboration. And now I see if I can jump back to the presentation without doing it. Yes, I can. Here is the process with Nendo or with Oki sitting there in the middle, always sitting on the floor. In the middle, on the bottom, you can see Sayaka, who is the project manager at the studio. She is also sitting on the floor in that position because it's about looking at the chair and the right angle and stuff. So we had some really, really good meetings. I think it's probably some of the best design meetings that I've had in my years here. We are building a lot of models there on the floor. You see iteration that spans all the way from the left-hand corner where we almost built just a seating machine to test the ergonomics of the chair, up to many, many iterations of this leading to the final product. Again here, if you look at how we worked here, it was a lot about iteration, and that's also part of the way that we work. I would love to have shown you some interesting stuff about the future. I'm of course prohibited by that by my boss, but I'll share some with you anyway, just a little bit. We have projects running with Nendo on the left or with Oki on the left. We have projects running with Jaime in the middle, and we are bringing in a new designer in our collection here this fall. He's called Sebastian Herkner. Some of you might know him, some of you might not. He's German. And he has been hovering in the world of furniture and light for some years. I think he's highly talented. So I also gave him an impossible assignment a year and a half ago, and he has actually solved that quite well. So I'm looking forward to introducing a new project in the future with Sebastian. This is an illustration that I love. This is, I said to Oki when we did the next project that he made for us, which is called the N02 chair, that you need to come up with some kind of illustration that shows me why you want this detail. It's very hard to do, okay, why do you want that detail? And you need for me to be able to explain your design idea. And what he did was this, he said, many chairs on the left look like that. It's just a piece of plastic that is just a bowl. And his idea was, he always draws himself as this little tall stick man. And he said, my idea was to bend it and then bend it back to create this line, like folding a piece of paper. And suddenly the whole design gave meaning. And the whole idea of making a poly chair that has this little curve, fine curve, and bent at the middle of the back, it creates the lumbar support. It makes the chair stiff from that point down, but soft from that point up, so it can actually flex a little. And it creates this thing when you see it from the back and it stands around the table, they all have these little creases or little folds, making it just a little bit more curious and fun than a regular sort of bowl-shaped plastic chair. We had such high ambitions on this project, and we built in a lot of the things that we believe in for the future. We want to build families of products. We want to be bold with colors. We want to offer nice design products at good price points and in the contract market. But most of all, we also want to have an attitude. And this product, the plastic part of this product, is made from 100% recycled plastic, collected in the country where the shell is manufactured, with the shortest distance between the trash bin of household waste and the plastic shell, and with the shortest distance from plastic shell to our manufacturing or our assembly factory, and thereby looping in this little local loop of material and product into with the smallest footprint that we could find. So ambitions like that is something that we want to work with in the future. The steel is recycled, the aluminum is recycled to the degree that you can get it in market now. For steel, it's about 50% recycled. For aluminum, it's about 95, 97% recyclable, at least in Europe. So here, a project with a high design ambition and with a high commercial ambition. That is also the core of some of the things that we do. So it kind of brings us up to 2020 because this product was launched last year. We are doing some iterations on this and some variant creation on this for the fall of 2020. But this is one of the kind of projects that has sprung out of a new focused strategy for Fritz Hansen, bringing at least our contemporary products into modern times. So I'll send you off or finish my many words here with this picture, which is also one of our new products, which is called the Fred chair. Fred is, when you spell it in English, is a name. When you spell it in Danish, it's peace. So maybe a little too high ambitions here, but it actually creates tranquility and peace and transparency that none of our other lounge chairs has. Designed by Jaime Hayon. Photo shot here at Bjarke's houseboat, where he lives his daily life. We borrowed his houseboat for this picture. So here again, set in setting with a Paul McCobb table designed in 1950 in just thin steel and a black slab of marble. So again, probably much the story of who we are in Fritz Hansen. So I hope you had some stories that would inspire you, and let's go to Q&A and see if you have anything, and I'll try to answer as good as I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. I think we can go ahead and turn off screen share and jump over to Q&A.
Yes. Yeah.
If you want to keep yourself up on the screen, that way students can still see you through your video.
Yes.
Students, just a reminder again, we're going to turn over to Q&A now. You can submit your questions either down at the bottom or the top, depending on the device that you're using. You'll find that function.
Yes.
Christian, Fritz Hansen works with so many great designers, from the icons like Arne Jacobsen to more recent designers like Nendo and Fritz. How, in working with all of these different amazing designers, do you keep the brand's DNA?
Some of it is controlled, of course, by our design philosophy, meaning that I share the slide that you saw with the rational, emotional, functional, of course, has a lot of words under it, how we would like to translate that. We talk about Danishness, we talk about truth, we talk about original, we talk about all these words, but they are formulated in a sort of a written design philosophy that we expect, or that we hope the designers would tap into and refer to when they do their projects. Some of the kind of core DNA of that is based on an analysis of the projects or products that we have. So the description about sculpture much takes its reference from the X chair or the Swan chair, not because we want the text to be so that they try to make the next X chair, but try it with something like, it should be elegantly floating in the room. It should be as beautiful from the back as from the front. It should offer comfort and quiet if it's high back. It should be exquisite in the way that it's sewn. It should be innovative in the way that it offers solutions for fabrics or leathers. So it quickly becomes a discussion about what the core of all our products historically is translated into. Not that it's a checklist, but at least be used as an inspiration, and then we talk a lot. I talk a lot, and the other people in my design department talk a lot. So we have a lot of conversations going, and we tend to use our own products as reference and not other products from other manufacturers. So that's also part of trying to keep it close to ourselves.
Great. What has been your personal path in the design industry?
Well, long story short, 57 years old, wanted to be a mechanical engineer, found out that I sat on the back row and were more interested in how the shape of the machine was than how it worked. Probably found out that my right way in life would be to become a designer, and switched from old school engineering to design. And then instead of applying for the technical part, I applied for the art school or the design school in Denmark. Came in and was finished there 25 years ago together with Kasper, as I said before, and others. Started my first 15 years as a designer, actively designing industrial design products for a Danish design company called Christian Bjørn Design, no longer exists. And ended up being kind of project manager there and having some accounts that I took care of with clients, and wanted a new challenge. So I switched from there to become head of design at an architect studio. One of the big Danish famous architect studios, Henning Larsen, had the idea to create a design department that should try to go back to the roots of design being part of architecture and interiors and and products being part of the offering from a big and famed architect studio. So I spent 10 years there, building up the design department together with a growing team, and doing both interior design, product design, and graphic design, most signage and stuff like that, in a sort of combined department under my management or leadership. And then 5.5 years ago, I jumped from Henning Larsen to here. The job was open, and I applied and had a really sort of cool process with management here coming into to Fritz Hansen. So I'm a yearling in Fritz Hansen, but spent probably 30 years of my life in the design world.
That's a great journey. In your role now, what is your day-to-day look like?
My role now is head of design, and that means that I head up the design department. Responsibility is our roadmap and pipeline looking into the future. I'm the proud owner of the collection and the maintenance of that, and the proud owner of the communication around design and our products through our marketing and PR. And we work in a way where I'm very focused on the design process together with my team. I have a team of 6 people in the design department working with the different categories of products and working in our workshops and in our 3D environment. And then I tend to carry the project into to product development, and then the teams continue with that. And then at the end, I'm present again, ensuring that we have the right handover to marketing and to sales, and even out in markets, doing a lot of the things that I do here for you now, also for our clients and dealers, and in general for market.
Great. What advice do you have for new designers just starting out?
I'm asked that question a lot, and I think it depends on the journey that you want to embark on as a designer. If your approach as a designer would be to collaborate with other people and be part of let's say either a studio or a company like I am now, or you want to be your own independent designer, 2 very different skill sets and very different pieces of advice. But if you look at it from a designer perspective of being your own designer, I think it has a lot to do about embracing the collaborations with the ones that you work for. I seldom pick up a product that somebody sent me on an email. I get a lot of them, and I answer truthfully every time, because that's what you do. But I seldom pick up that. I sometimes pick up a designer's call through that, and therefore quickly translate into the sort of the communication with the designer about the core virtues and the core things about their work. And I need to understand them, and I want them to understand me. Otherwise, we cannot work together. The core best advice would probably be to be curious and to be true to your own design identity or your own design DNA inside yourself. All designers that work with design have some kind of pen or some kind of shape, and please use that instead of doing a lot of interpretations of what you think Fritz Hansen needs. The projects should come from the heart. I know it sounds weird, but at least that's my experience. And curiosity is a big part of it. I am hugely curious myself, and it works. It works for the ones that we are collaborating with, at least.
Absolutely, and that's great advice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We aren't going to be able to make it through everyone's wonderful questions, but I do want to let students know that we will be going through the questions after this and providing written responses soon. Christian, is there any last advice or words of wisdom that you want to give to the students?
You know, when I was a design student many years ago, I went to a school where the core of the history of that school was much about handcraft and much about being an artist, and I think a lot of designers sit on that very sharp edge of, should I go and be a innovator myself, or should I work as a consultant as a designer? And I think that balance is very sharp and very fine, but please jump into it and please decide, because you can always cross that border again. You can always, through your curiosity, work with the creative part of your mind there, and with the, let's say, the more industrial part of your design work on the other hand. So I think the truth lies in being able to do both. And it worked for me, and it worked for a lot of the designers that I see when I meet them, that they have a little bit of both. They have kept their curiosity and their sort of style, but they have also embraced the dialogue with the clients and with themselves. So be true to yourselves. That's my advice.
Great. Well, Christian, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak to students and present more about Fritz Hansen and your own personal career path. We really appreciate it. Students.
Well, thank you. Anytime, I'll gladly join again.
Great. Students, we want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to learn more about Fritz Hansen, you can visit fritzhansen.com or their Instagram @FritzHansen. If you'd like to learn more about Be Original Americas, you can visit beoriginalamericas.com or our Instagram channel, Be Original USA. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.